Hello.
Hey, Kale.
Hey Jeffrey, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's great to see you as well, my friend.
Good morning.
Hey.
Do you even know that song?
There was no song.
Y'all couldn't hear my song?
No, it was dead silent, a little awkward and boring.
Seriously?
Yeah, we were just sitting here looking at
Oh, I'm
you.
making music over here.
Uh,
I'm
I
surprised.
know, I was a little surprised. The vibes are pretty low.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know.
Never mind. All right.
How do
So
you
here,
really?
Oh,
uh,
I only speak truths.
all right, that's awkward. You missed
Yeah.
my vibe this morning. All right. So quick thought. Most boring Super Bowl ever. And but I started thinking about what's the lesson that's coming out of the Super Bowl. And the New England Patriots has a very talented young quarterback who just got the snot beat out of him yesterday. And I thought about this in context of real estate. Like, is he deflated today? Probably. Yet, has a talented real estate agent ever gone on a listing presentation? Let's say they go on their first $1 million listing presentation and they don't get it. What's the lesson in that, right? Like, how should that quarterback be? What's the lesson he should be learning today? What's the lesson a real estate agent that might have gone on a big listing appointment and not gotten it? What's the lesson? What do you think? You understand my question?
I think it's all about the reps. You're getting reps. So next time, maybe you'll get it.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect every time.
Well, and he's a professional quarterback who didn't just show up on at the Super Bowl. He's had setbacks and losses before. Clearly, he's resilient.
Yep. I
And
think
I'll say,
it's
I've heard of a football analogy to where, you know, sometimes we think the goal of football is to get a touchdown. In reality, it's a bunch of first downs, and eventually you get a touchdown. And in this case, yesterday, eventually you get several field goals, and that what wins the game. And so, just continue to get the first down. Eventually, you'll get the field goal and or the touchdown.
Yeah. I just think I've counseled agents over the years, Hubert, where man, they're just down in the dumps because they lost a deal or a deal canceled or they went on a listing presentation and didn't get it. And it's just a reminder that's part of life. That's part of our journey. And yes, it's okay to be deflated in the moment, but you've got to find the lesson and go forward because his career won't be defined by yesterday's loss. His career will be defined by what comes after it. And I think it's the same analogy in real estate is you're never defined by one single transaction, but boy, it sure feels that way at times, right?
I was going to add, Brett, I mean, if you get every single listing presentation that you're going on, you're not going on enough listing presentations.
Jay-Z, that's 100% accurate, right? Anyway, it was just a thought around the Super Bowl yesterday. Let's jump through. Elise Steele, you're my co-host with
Yeah.
Rick Hale. Pipe up when feel necessary. So Fulton County, 830 active status changes last 7 days. Big pop in Fulton County active status changes over the last 7 days. We're really climbing that inventory going into the spring market. Under contract last week was a big number at 133, still a big number at 122, 236 pending. I feel like that spring market climb's really coming. 219 closed in the last 7 days. Biggest number on a 7-day total year to date. What are y'all feeling in the marketplace?
I mean, I've got
Getting busy.
I've got clients reaching out. I'm ready to list. Just kind of, I have a clients more of my clients are just kind of in the prep stages, which is great. Which I didn't have this many clients at this time last year raising their hand saying, "Okay, we're ready to prep." Which that sounds good to me because not a lot of people are prepping their houses. So if I've got 4 or 5 people saying, "Hey, I'm ready to prep in less than April," like that's great. I hope sellers are trying to get it, that finally getting it, that buyers are looking for a little bit better than just trash. So yeah, it seems positive.
Good. You know what? I'm very consciously aware that's not on these reports. How many people are walking into your open houses? How many times your phones ring in? All the conversations you're having, the showings on your listings. Are there more showings happening on your listings right now? I would venture to say yes to all those questions, but you got to tell me because we can't track all that stuff.
Yeah, I have some condo listings and townhouse listings that have been really hard to sell, even with trying to reduce price and pricing them correctly. It's just a lot of them on the market, but I'm starting to see showings, an increase in showings, almost double the amount that we've had before. So that's been good.
Mm-hmm. That's good. If you attended our stats presentation, I think it was last Friday. Was it last Friday? Oh my God, my days are running together. Maybe it was a week ago. We'd separated condos and single family, and there was a lot of really interesting data. I'm not going to jump into it on this call, but there's certainly a different market in condos or attached properties versus single family, and you should get your hands on that data. DeKalb County, 303, largest active status change year to date. 76 under contract. We had a couple big weeks early January. It tapered off just a little bit in DeKalb County. I'm wondering if the weather event was a part of that. We have 138 currently pending in DeKalb County, and 149 was a big closing number in DeKalb County over the last 7 days. So certainly a spring market. I think the numbers got, I'll say, distracted with the weather, if you will, over the last 2 weeks, but we're still seeing big numbers coming forward. In Cobb County, 347 active status change, big number, largest number Year to date, 89 active under contract, certainly more than we saw the last 2 weeks. But there was that big week early January where there was 105. But these are really healthy numbers for Cobb County. Currently 165 in the pending status with 133 closings in the last 7-day total. All three counties' largest number of closings over the year to date, right? So, any thoughts on the numbers?
I'm just asking myself, am I getting my unfair share? And if not, what has to change so that I get shots? Back to the point that was made earlier, that Jay-Z said you got to take shots to win. And if you're not losing shots, you're not taking shots often enough to grow into a better version of your value proposition.
Yeah. Rick, one of the words that I think is relevant right now is momentum. And what we're looking at, and it happens every year at this time, is the momentum builds from the start of the year up to the spring market. But the question is are you riding that same momentum, right? Like, are you taking those shots? Are you capitalizing on the momentum build in your own personal business? I was talking with the leadership last week about how do we talk to everybody about goals? Because like if January was 1/12 of the year, do agents, should they have closed 1/12 of their goal already? And one of the conversations a lot of real estate coaches have is they say you should be closing 20% of your goal in first quarter, 30% of your goal in second quarter, 30% in third quarter, and 20% in fourth quarter, just from a bell curve. But I actually think, why couldn't you get your unfair share and just nail your goal first and second quarter so that your goal is on autopilot by the halfway through the year? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that from a momentum standpoint?
If you haven't hit your goal in first quarter already or on pace, you're into second quarter. I mean, we're mid-February. So that's my only thought about hit it in first and second. There is a hack that I teach in lead gen and goal setting is divide your goal by 9 months instead of 12 and let the fourth quarter be your makeup quarter. Should you come up short, obviously, again, mid-February, you may have to amend your approach, but don't wait for fourth quarter to save your year is what I think I heard you say.
Yep. Any other thoughts before we move up past the numbers?
It's that obvious. Let's go.
Sleeping off the hangover of the Super Bowl. All right. Mortgage rates. Mortgage News Daily has them at 6.15. Last week, they were 6.17. Here's the word I would throw at this: stable. And I want to remind you, this time last year, we did not have the same experience around mortgage rates. It took half the year for them to kind of come down to where there was some buyer excitement around the mortgage rates. I certainly think you've got customers that are probably getting locked in the high fives if they've got good credit and all that fun stuff, depending on lender programs. But 6.15 is a great mortgage rate. And I think the fact that they're stable is causing people to lean into mortgage rates right now. And I think we just got a really good mortgage rate climate going into 2026. And I do think when they're stable, it doesn't create people to wait and see. It certainly doesn't create any kind of buyer confusion, if that makes sense. So I feel good about where the rates are right now at the beginning of 2026. All right. Next three articles are a little bit about our industry and what big conversations are coming at our industry. So this first article talks about Robert Refkin's floating the idea of a national MLS, says Compass previously declined to make a deal with Zillow, blah, blah, blah. Here's what you need to know. There's two camps. There is he's got a quote here that says, I believe we shouldn't have 518 MLSs. I believe the brokerages should come together, create a common MLS. What I believe Robert Refkin and his conglomerate is doing is I think they're pushing on the value proposition of NAR. I think they're pushing on the value proposition of MLS on a national scale. And I also think he has a pressure fight going against Zillow. And do I think that's going to change your day to day today? No. But I think you need to be aware that there's pressure on those things in our industry. So he's putting pressure on one side of the fence. Then this second article, the National Association of Realtors president is saying, we don't dictate what's right and wrong. So he's saying we don't dictate what's right and wrong about a system. We're going to let the marketplace dictate, what's best for the members. He said, we think that locally, the local marketplaces should dictate what's best for the local marketplace. So you've got opposing conversations going on where Refkin and his camp is talking about how do we make things more national? And NAR is saying we believe the local market should make the local rules. And who's right and who's wrong will play out this year. I think it's just pressure coming at the industry around how it's organized. Not one's right and one's wrong. I certainly have my opinions, and I think you probably do as well. But I just want you to know that those conversations are happening at a national level. And I think they're going to translate to the local level too. Anybody sit on any boards where these conversations are coming up? Oh, well, be aware.
I think the
Then
secret
there's-
here's what's important, Brett, follow the money and the influence. That's what everyone's chasing. And the other thought is I believe that the whole NAR position on let the market decide is strictly they're terrified of the cost of drawing a line in the sand and creating an indefensible position in the eyes of a court based on some class action suits that have been very expensive. So it's interesting to me that they're a governing and guiding body, but they're now net neutral Switzerland. But here we are.
Here we are.
Question.
All right. Yeah,
Question.
go ahead.
What's the possibility of us having only one MLS in Atlanta?
I think it's probably going to depend on what the national rhetoric does. Like, here's the question. Let me go to this next article and I'll come back to your question, Ted, because, the third leg to this stool is Compass is trying to dismantle the Zillow relationship. And what's happened is Compass has taken a position of this private listing network, pre-market listing stance. And Zillow came out and said, if you pre-market a listing in a private listing network, we're going to block that listing from going on Zillow. And I've got some big agent friends around the country that have received letters in the mail from Zillow saying, we're not going to list your listing on Zillow. And so I do know that that's happening. And so Compass sued Zillow about this listing block, if you will. And the federal judge last week denied their motion, saying Zillow can block those listings. So the question is, one, be aware that that's going on. But two, if you're an agent in Atlanta and you go up on a listing presentation against a agent at Compass that's pushing this private listing network, you could put this article in front of that seller and say, look, if you put your listing in a private listing network, Zillow's going to block it from going on Zillow. And does that actually harm you long term? Because if you're taking a listing and that listing doesn't get listed on Zillow, that's probably not a positive thing in terms of that seller. And it's happening. So, you could counter it by saying, I actually think exposure helps you as homeowner to get the most amount of exposure on your listing will drive our opportunities up to drive your listings, right? So you better believe the national MLS is tied to this Zillow rhetoric, Ted, is what I'm saying. Is if they had a national MLS, the motivation behind that is to dispel this Zillow conversation. Um, but Zillow is winning the battle right now about blocking those listings from their website if somebody were to do a pre-market private listing. Does that make sense? Anybody coming up against this?
I bet it's it's an extreme minority at this point. Love to hear if anyone has come upon it that somehow was perceived a competitive advantage when you were competing for a listing.
Yes,
Nobody.
I won one 2 weeks ago that was up against a Compass agent, and I got the listing.
Okay. Did
So
it come
And
up at the
I
listing table, Jeff?
yes, it did. It did. I brought it up, but
that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah. Anybody else? I think it's more of a marketing thing than a reality thing, but I think the Refkin rhetoric at the national scale is trying to organize to push back against this to push his personal agenda versus it being better for the industry. I don't know. Um, but I don't think, look, here's what I know, Ted, is that most of the people sitting on the boards at real estate associations do not want a national play. They like the local play.
No,
And they're the ones driving that conversation.
I mean, we're the only market that has two. It's just, and I understand there's a lot of financial people want to control their little, it's sucks, honestly.
Yeah. Well,
It's
we're
expensive.
not the only market. South Florida has two. There's the Miami Association MLS and there's a Beaches MLS, and they literally have to put the listings in both as well. So
Yeah.
it's look, the Association of Realtors and the MLS boards are very territorial and they don't play well
Got it.
with each other. It's a hot mess, to be honest. But
And back to
uh,
my comment, follow the money and follow the control or influence, which are one and the same.
yeah.
Sure.
Now
And
they
so
switch.
I do think at some point there probably will be pressure to either consolidate or simplify or economize what you said was real expensive. Laura, what you got?
I was just going to say, sitting on the DeKalb Association Realtors Board, and knowing what Georgia MLS is doing, Georgia MLS is trying to pull in all the smaller MLSs around the state of Georgia, especially so that those of us who sell like in North Georgia and maybe out, in different parts closer into Atlanta, but not truly in Atlanta, trying to incorporate those. So between FMLS and Georgia MLS, they are trying to get, because Georgia has quite a few MLSs in the state. So I know there's an effort trying to get some of those MLSs to come together within the two big ones.
And one last point, Ted, too, for Keller Williams, what I believe, from a culture play, we do profit share half of the revenue that comes back in. And the secondary thing to consider is we have the lowest caps in the country. And that's the product of being able to create, a model that's, reasonably profitable for the market center, but also a win for the agent. And that's a rare advantage that doesn't show up in competing brokerages where that's likely a big chunk of all of their profit. especially
No, I
discounts.
yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that like your business model is built on that kick share back, whatever. So
It
and
is.
our caps would have to be bigger. I understand that. It's just
There would be a ripple
unfortunate that
effect.
yeah. It's unfortunate that we have to do both, and it looks really bad from my perspective. Like if my client says, "Hey, you didn't see this one because it's only in Georgia MLS," because none of us use, or I don't use Georgia MLS as frequently as FMLS, so it just makes our job more complicated.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Agree.
I get it. All right.
Thanks
This
for bringing
article
it up.
is a report from Realtor.com, Q2. Of course, data is always in arrears. Talks about their revenue rose 10%. Here's what I'm reading inside this article. According to ComScore data cited in the post, Realtor.com drove 3.4 times the visit share of Homes.com and 2.3 times Redfin, while rapidly catching Zillow by closing more than half the visit share gap over the past 18 months. So, from a consumer eyeball perspective, Zillow is still number one in terms of consumer eyeballs, but Realtor.com is showing up number two. Homes.com is showing up as number three, and Redfin showing up as number four. Look, we don't love this because I wish all the consumers look for real estate on your website, but they don't. They're looking on Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, and Redfin. And I think a lot of realtors used to do lead generation with Realtor.com and stopped. And the question is, should we be considering Realtor.com as a lead source? One, two, be aware if you're playing a review game, a claiming your sales game, there's still a chunk of consumers on Realtor.com that you need to be aware of. Does that make sense? Does anybody do lead gen with Realtor.com?
No one? Okay.
I do, Brett.
And what's your experience?
Um, Last year was pretty terrible. They switched to this Opcity type of where they field the leads and pass them to you live. And so you have like 42 seconds to claim it. Otherwise, it goes to somebody else. And where before they were just emailing you the lead. So last year wasn't great. You know, I'm still doing it, but I'm going to be doubling down on marketing avenues that give me 3-to-1 ROI.
Yeah. I think Realtor.com is switching to a Zillow model, which they're calling it Opcity, but it's a referral fee model versus a bought lead model. And then the question is, are they actually getting the eyeballs there? But certainly their increase in revenue speaks to that Opcity model versus you paying for leads. It's just an awareness thing. All right, I'm going to hit a couple quick articles so you're from an awareness standpoint. There, Toll Brothers is the builder in both these articles. So they're building $1 million homes up and coming. They're putting a lot of property on the ground there. Excuse me. And they're building a lot of single family homes in Marietta. There's 84 homes. So it's an awareness that Toller Brothers is putting a lot of inventory on the ground in Atlanta right now. The other thing that you need to be aware of is Keller Williams settled this Batten Commission lawsuit last week. So rewind, the National Association of Realtor lawsuit was actually brought a class action lawsuit from sellers. But what was off most people's radar was there was a second lawsuit that was class action brought by buyers. Keller Williams settled this last week. And here's what it says. Keller is pleased to reach a nationwide settlement releasing the company, all of our franchisees and affiliated agents and teams from antitrust litigation brought by home buyers who purchase homes through the MLS. So not that I think you were aware or even concerned about antitrust litigation. You probably should have been aware, but does it translate down to agents and teams? It does. Yet any transaction done by a KW agent or a KW agent is now absolved by this settlement. And I think that's a pretty big statement to know that our company was willing to write a $20 million check to protect all of us in the field from any kind of antitrust litigation. Rick, you had comments before. What's your thoughts?
It's just awesome to be part of a company that thinks beyond their own personal pocketbook. They could keep kicking it down the road, but the longer it's unresolved, the more liability there is for not only the master company and our reputation, but also the brokerage level for Keller Williams, as well as the agent level. Because when the Sitzer Burnett suit came through, there were a slew of threats that showed up, and with legal from other lawyers basically copycatting and using that as a precedent and attacking all the way down to the agent level because they now have precedent again and some leverage, not because they're going to win in court, but because they can leverage you knowing you can't afford to defend it and that you'll settle for some amount of money. So to get out in front of it and eliminate the distraction as well as the liability, I think is a real credit to our leadership and the company we're a part of.
There you go. There's one other article I'm going to let you read and circle that talks about the 5 things that are in and the 5 things that are out in terms of marketing. So I want to make sure we respect your time, but I would encourage you to read that article. It's pretty spot on right now. So thank you guys. Allie, last final words.
No, actually, but that article that you just mentioned was probably my favorite one out of all of them. So
We probably should have started
definitely
with
worth
that.
reading. I know. Yeah,
All
that was a
right.
good one.
Moving
Maybe
on.
next week.
All right, guys, have a good one.
See
See
ya.
ya.